Should have started. Yep, there we go. So, okay. Karen, take it away.
Okay, thank you. And it's my honor to introduce our panelists on the Hornby Denman Internet call today, February 17th. The first panelist who is on my screen is Stefan Wallesen, the CEO of CityWest Telecom, and CityWest is out of Prince Rupert, a wholly owned subsidiary of the city of Prince Rupert, and been in business for over 100 years. Started as a telephone company and now full service digital entertainment and telecommunications, serving the northwest corner of BC. Does that include Haida Gwaii?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, good luck. Okay, and thank you very much for your
serving Haida Gwaii through the Connected Coast.
Awesome, great. Okay, thank you, Stefan. The next panelist is David Leach, and Dave is the Chief Administrative Officer for the Strathcona Regional District, which is headquartered in Campbell River. And Dave is one of the prime movers behind aligning the 13 regional districts and the 154 municipalities into the Connected Coast project to serve high-speed fiber optic internet to the west coast of Canada, coastal British Columbia. So huge project, and Dave's just been doing an amazing job at getting everybody together. The industry consultant on the call today is Paul Daniel. Paul is a senior consultant, works with the government, with businesses, First Nation groups, and specializes in telecommunications and information technology, including planning and design, development, execution, and ongoing operations. Paul is actually, I was kind of teasing him at the beginning of the call because we met a couple of years ago when we tried to recruit Paul to do some consulting work for Hornby and Denman. He was a little busy for that project, but he did manage to get Darren Doffer, who completed our digital roadmap and implementation plan, and we were absolutely delighted with the work that Darren did. So very much appreciated that Paul expedited that for us. I would also like to acknowledge, those are our three panelists, but I would like to acknowledge with appreciation a current lead investigator on the Hornby and Denman Internet project, and that's James Warren, the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer in Comox for the CVRD. So it's great that James took his time also to come on the call. And finally, I would like to thank the key members of the Hornby Denman Working Group for Internet, and that's John Grayson, Peter Spur, and John Weigel. And that team will also all be on today. And they did an incredible amount of volunteer work over the span of a couple of years. So now I would like to ask our panel to get started. And if Stefan, perhaps I could defer to you on some of the overview, and if you could get the team to fill us in.
Please. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let Dave provide a general overview, and I'll fill in the gaps very happily, and then obviously Karen to go through the questions that you may have. Between the three of us, would be delighted to be able to answer to the best of our ability. We're very happy, excited to have the opportunity to be able to present to you all today and to answer the questions to the best of our ability. So with that being said, Dave, why don't you kick it off, and then I'll take it after that.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Stefan. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm driving, so I've got the Teams going, but again, I hope everyone can hear me. I'll try and give a bit of a condensed overview of the project, what's happened in the last 3.5 years, I guess. So CityWest and the Strathcona Regional District were co-applicants, if you will, to the Connect Innovate program to provide connectivity to rural and remote communities on Vancouver Island and the west coast of British Columbia. So we were awarded the project separately. We were given bits of the project to serve about 155 landings in communities 44 First Nations and to bring high-speed connectivity to those communities. So over the course of a couple years, it came to light that the best thing for CityWest and the SRD to do was to create a joint venture partnership and tackle the project together. I think we found that our partnership with CityWest's experience and knowledge in telecoms and the SRD with local government, we've created a great partnership. So for the last 6 or 8 months, we've been going at this project together. It's about 3,500 kilometers of subsea fiber cable landing. The number's growing, but this is about 160 landings in communities across Vancouver Island and the West Coast. So what might be relevant to Denman and Hornby or some interest to them about where we're at with them is that when we made application to this program, there was a benchmark internet service for communities of 5 download speed, 1 upload speed. And we were partnering with the federal government and the province to identify underserved communities. So even though the routing was going right by Denman and Hornby, those communities at the time were considered served. It took us quite a long time with the partners to sign a contribution agreement. It was about 2 years before the project was fully a go. At the end of that 2 years, the internet, the benchmark standard had increased to 5010, but the project had been awarded, landing sites had been established, and we were moving forward on permitting applications. However, we've had some communications with folks from Denman, Hornby, Southern Gulf Islands, and a number of other, partners or potential partners like Coast Guard and Narcan. So there was an ability then for us to look at servicing communities and making applications for landing sites to add to the Connected Coast program. Denman and Hornby, a little bit, kind of the timing of it's a little bit challenging for us in that this is our first phase of the fiber lay coming by there. And even though we believe Denman and Hornby may be eligible for last mile funding and a fiber landing, we're not certain that the timing for the funding would be there. So we approached James and the CBRD and said, we know there's some interest from the community, and we're working hard to provide a landing site, but we need to establish that some certainty with funding, and went to the CBRD and worked with, again, Denman and Hornby, and the board has supported 2 landing sites, one at Denman, one in Hornby, of course, and secured the funding for that. So that's where we're at right now. We're engaged in permitting process. We're working hard for all the communities, including Denman and Hornby, looking at last mile solutions, and with the CVRD to look at ways that we can support the last mile in connection with the fiber landings that we're having there. So just not to get too far ahead of myself, but just to kind of get into some of the things that we've been discussing with Karen and the CVRD is that there's a couple programs out there, but the one that we're focusing Denman and Hornby for on last mile is the Universal Broadband Fund. It's a federal fund that provides a 75-25 split in funding. Now, there's a provincial program that's the Economic Recovery Intake, and that provides 90-10. And we've been working with the province heavily to try and support communities and programs that provide up to 90% funding. This Connect Innovate's a program that serves rural and remote communities. That means communities not called Vancouver and Victoria, communities that don't have a ton of resources. So we've been moving forward with the principle that in combination with the feds and the provinces that we'll be working towards a 90-10 funding split. Even though what exists on the table right now through UBF is 75-25, we have quite a caucus of provincial MLAs on our side supporting communities and supporting funding models moving forward with a 90-10 split. So, our next effort has been how do we support these communities, because these are expensive projects. The reason they're not serviced is because of the business case to support putting millions of dollars into small remote communities just isn't there. So again, that's why the funding splits are quite generous. So there's still a gap there though. And so what we've been doing is we came up with a plan that we think can work best to support communities and have contributions and still make the project viable in all these communities. So one of the offers that we have had and we've moved forward with all these communities is providing an option that, not really an option, an opportunity, if you will, that communities, likely don't have cash in hand to even support the 10%. So CityWest and SRD have come up with a funding model that we are willing to engage in partnership agreements with communities that if the local regional district or municipality is willing to support in some way, either through borrowing, gas tax, what have you, reserve funds, is that we'll create a partnership agreement that will return 20% of the profits from that community back to them. So that can do a lot of things, but one of the things that has gained a lot of traction is that if the community borrows money, that dividend, if you will, at the end of the year can pay back the return on the borrowing. So to try to look at it as a worst case scenario is that money that is returned to the community will pay the debt, so the infrastructure becomes fully funded. So you can bring fiber to your community, to the home, and have the services that an ISP that CityWest can deliver, and the net cost of the infrastructure, on this model is no cost to the residents. So that's kind of what we move forward with. I hope that gives everyone a little bit of a snapshot. And, again, happy to answer any and all questions that folks may have.
Dave, thank you very much. That was a great overview. Stefan, did you want to add anything to that?
Mute, Stefan.
I think that was a very comprehensive review of who we are as partners looking to bring service to the community and what we stand for. So I think Karen, I know that the community has questions and that you're eager to put those forward. So we'd love to have the opportunity to be able to address them to the best of our ability.
Okay, thank you very much, Stefan. So the financial model that Dave just introduced for us, where we would actually have the opportunity at the CBRD level. So when I say we, I'm speaking in pretty big terms. What is that business model? Has it been done about retiring debt, or is it still at this point hypothetical, or what kind of subscriber buy-in would we need to have to make that a realistic business model? Have those numbers been run?
Well, let me just jump in there and then I'll let Stefan answer as well. But I want to just make some comments on some principles of what that kind of business model is based on. So, this is a partnership that we're engaging with communities. So we're looking at the size of the communities and anticipating and assuming that there is a significant uptake in there. So, Stefan's group has done a business model, but, I do want to make it clear that we are, have committed a lot of time, effort, and financial contribution via both the SRD and CityWest. When we do this for communities in this partnership, that we're really expecting to be supported in this and there be a significant uptake. And I'm going to say that Stefan's business case that he's built on is based on community support and uptake to it. So, when we say, let's just for round figures say there's 500 folks or homes on Denman, I'm certain he's not making an assumption that 32 of them are going to connect. The internet is something that everyone desires. The service is going to be there. The speeds of delivery is going to be there. And I think there's an expectation that there's going to be quite a significant uptake to that. So I'm going to say the assumptions on the business model is that we're quite confident with communities the size of Denman and Hornby on a significant uptake to the service, that there will be enough revenue generated that it will easily pay back the debt incurred. Again, we haven't got into details of term and amount. We have to make applications. We have to see what we get and then work out the finer details of that. But I think those are assumptions that, I want to share with the community because this is a partnership.
Yeah, so maybe if I can just add a couple of thoughts to that. The one thing that I think we can all quite easily align on is that connectivity is extremely important, and we're seeing this all the way across the province. So it's not a far stretch to assume that with the delivery of fiber through a community, that the uptake, we call it the penetration rate, into a community would be quite substantial. And it's what we've seen in every single community that we've developed fiber into. COVID has obviously helped to make connectivity even more of an important item on communities' agendas. In fact, with virtually every single community that we have engaged with, connectivity is a top agenda item on the community's list of items of importance. The other important thing to note is being a municipal-owned corporation allows us to operate slightly differently to the other telcos. Our founding mandate is not to generate shareholder returns; it's to serve the public interest, and that gives us the ability to be able to provide superior platforms to communities without having to spend as much time ensuring that shareholder returns are maintained at the type of level that are demanded by publicly traded telcos. So the business model lends itself quite well to this style of rural/small community development using high-end connectivity technology. So it works well.
So, Stefan, perhaps I could get you to explain to people exactly what that service looks like in terms of what upload and download speeds would be, in terms of latency, what kind of service we're talking about.
So what we're talking about is fiber delivery to the home. And so our fiber delivery to the home service right now provides 1,000 megabytes to the home. It's the highest speed delivery that exists right now. And the amazing thing about fiber is the fact that it is a future-proof technology. It has virtually unlimited potential. It means that as we recognize the community's connectivity needs, desires, and aspirations will grow in time, so our ability to be able to use the same infrastructure to be able to provide greater and greater bandwidth, it scales. So it's the concept of dig once or do once, and use that same infrastructure to be able to cater to the community today, 10 years from now, and 50 years from now, because fiber has incredibly good longevity attached to it, as opposed to traditional copper and coaxial networks.
So just for clarity then, Stefan, 1,000 megabytes would be how we would be looking at the 50 down and 10 up. We're talking about that type of a difference between 50 and 1,000. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah. So Karen, so the way that the federal government has defined the funding allocation is, if there's an area that is receiving 50 down and 10 up, the federal government declares that area as being served, and that's based on a CRTC definition. And so what we're proposing for Denman and Hornby is fiber, which provides 1,000, and the reason being is that 50-10, as far as we're concerned, is just not sufficient for communities' needs. Now we understand that that's the line that the federal government has drawn, and we respect that. But within that, we believe that fiber is the best delivery mechanism to be able to provide the community with a future-proof technology that will live for decades.
Okay, thank you. Could you elaborate on the fiber-to-home and what the intent on the project would be when there's actual last-mile installation to our islands? Would it be 100% coverage? Would there be hookup costs for people with long driveways in remote areas? How would you foresee that, or is that sort of a little bit premature and asking questions about your business model?
No. I think that's fair. So the funding applications that we put forwards is we go through a process of trying to leave no homes left behind. Now there are extreme cases where it can swing the financials so far out that it invalidates a funding attempt. So for Denman and Hornby, I think we're looking at 95% coverage for the islands. And in terms of where the fiber goes, it goes directly into the home. So there's no signals. There's no wireless component to it all. And the second component, Karen, I believe you asked is there a hookup cost? No, there's no hookup cost.
Okay, so when the fiber is actually being installed on my street, that would be the time to hook up, or can this be retrofitted and new houses sort of added as time goes by? Or if I didn't jump on at the beginning and wanted to come in later, what's my opportunity around that?
Yeah, so the opportunity is there. The ability to be able to hook on later is always there.
Okay, so there's not a limited number of ports or first come, first served, or things that we've been experiencing on the islands with limitations?
No.
Would we expect that it would be trenched in the ground service, Stefan, or would it be aerial on the poles, the hydro poles? I'll tell you that there's a couple of questions around the fragility perception of fiber versus the existing copper wire, which has been very flexible, and it stood up in a hardy way. It hasn't stood up technologically, but it does seem to never fall when the tree hits the lines.
It's interesting. So it's I don't know who shared that, but fiber is stronger than copper, and it's because fiber's built with core tensile strengtheners that are put into the fiber cable itself. And the perfect way to look at it is if you look at a hydro pole, you'll always see fiber versus copper, because the copper will sag, and the fiber will look relatively straight because it's got its own internal dampeners. So it's hardier, just from a technological standpoint. It's hardier than copper.
What if a tree did fall and break it? How easy is it to fix?
Well, it's as easy to fix as copper, in the sense that you have to have a qualified technician who goes and performs the fix. But it's not difficult. It's not difficult to fix. This is just part of business for us. Right.
Okay. And would part of the island or all of the island be underground, or have you actually got to that stage of? I know that when we did our implementation plan, that Baylink, we paid them to do the consultation. At that point, it was pretty well all trenched.
Yeah, it's a good question. So what it comes down to is economics. So you can have underground and you can have aerial. Aerial is cheaper to deploy than underground. And so our projects team is working on both. And the intent is for us to look at them side by side and to work out which we could likely get through the funders. So in other words, we want to be careful to put forwards an application that is strictly relying on underground development that invalidates the funding formula. So looking at this from a practical standpoint, the Universal Broadband Fund is a $1.8 billion fund. and they apportioned $250 million into what they call a rapid response stream. So these were projects that could be started up quickly and performed by Q3, end of Q3 this year. The applications for that $250 million was 6 times oversubscribed. So what we know is if the past is a good predictor of the future, and it generally is, the UBF, that $1.8 billion, is probably going to be also 6 times oversubscribed. And so what we want to do is we want to be sensitive to the fact that funders are going to have more applications than they have funds available, and we want to maximize the likelihood of your communities being able to get this future-proof technology. And so give us the opportunity to be able to put them side by side and look at the costing and make a decision that will result in the highest likelihood of success.
That's a great answer. When I think some of the business modeling that we were looking at was done, it was that the cost of renting the poles was so high. So it was actually at the operational end that it sort of pushed things underground as opposed to the decision on the actual installation.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. There seems to be a little bit of a misconception in industry, because there is a rental cost that you pay, but the thing that can sink projects sometimes is what they call make-ready costs, and that's the cost of preparing the pole to be able to receive fiber, and that's what sometimes pushes fiber projects from aerial down underground. But that's a capital cost. That's an upfront cost and not an ongoing operating cost. There is a rental cost. We hate paying the rental cost, but we have to pay the rental cost. But it doesn't generally sink the business case. It's more that make-ready cost, that upfront cost.
Could you give us an idea of what the cost of a monthly subscription would be for an average homeowner that?
So being an open an upfront company, we post our rates. So our rates are available on our website, and they range anywhere from $50 a month to $140 a month, depending on the package that you choose. And so we stand behind our rates, and what we charge one community, we charge all communities.
So we could go to citywest.ca and have a look at what the rates were for the type of package we might perceive for ourselves that we would want.
Absolutely.
Okay. Could you tell us
the range, Karen, is 50 to 140.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Stefan. Could you tell us what the proposed time frame for installation would be, with the assumption that our granting applications move forward? I guess we're kind of sunk if we don't get the UBF money. Would that be true? Would that be correct?
So when you say sunk, what do you mean sunk?
Well, if our application is ineligible or unsuccessful, then there wouldn't be, in our community, there wouldn't be the money to move forward.
I think that there's always the one thing we need to remember is that there are public programs that come available. They just trickle in continuously. I think that the other thing is that if the community partners up with us and declares a need, we'll find a way to be able to fulfill the need. So there's always an old mentor of mine always used to say there's always a different way to skin a cat, or there's always a different way to trap the mouse. So there's always a way to be able to make it work for the community, and that's the philosophical approach that we take in terms of timing. So assuming we make an application through the UBF and that application is successful, and I'd like to run on that stream right now with that assumption, then we still have some hurdles that we have to get through. The first one is the permitting the permitting process that we're going through on the Connected Coast. Now, that doesn't mean that there's any likelihood the Connected Coast isn't going to happen. It just talks to the timing at which we're going to be able to land on Denman and Hornby. So there are there's a timing component for the UBF. There's a timing component for the Connected Coast. All things being equal, I would like to be producing and on the ground developing this next winter, 2021. And Paul, if you want to lean in for a second and speak to whether or not you agree or any differences, please.
Absolutely, Stefan. We're expecting that the connected coast will be in the water sometime during this summer or next fall, and all going well, according to the federal government projections, we should have an answer on UBF applications within that time frame as well. So a build through this winter would be ideal for our group's plan on.
How long would it take to do the installation on our islands, Paul? Have you got a sense of that?
It's really going to depend on what we're able to mobilize as construction resources and where we come out in the negotiations on this funding plan, Karen. To give you a definitive answer is hard, but I would guess that the construction would be planned over a month or two, if that's close enough for you.
Absolutely, it's not a 2-year project.
No, it's there's always an upfront component, but the actual build itself is we do it quickly because that's the effective and economical way to do it.
Yeah, the point about a month or two would be the time for crews working on the islands. The connected coast fiber builds up from Vancouver through Nanaimo, up Vancouver Island, including the Hornby Denman landings, and up to Campbell River, up to Prince Rupert. That's all going to take probably more like 6 to 10 months overall, with the work on the shore landings taking most of that time. The actual fiber goes into the water very quickly in 4 sections, probably each section being only a week or 2 in duration each.
And Hornby Denman are in phase 1, Paul, is that correct? That ends at Campbell River?
It is in our permitting package, but there are 4 application packages for building in 2021, and we are somewhat at the mercy of processes that have a lot of stakeholders involved, and frankly, it's a bit of a guessing game trying to control that process. The Front Counter BC, through the province, Forest Lands and Natural Resources, acts as a coordinator and lead agency for permitting purposes. They have a target to process applications in a period of 140 days. Our application for that process, including Denman and Hornby, has already been filed about a month ago. And so, in a best case scenario, I would say we might see permits for a go-ahead on that in 90 to 120 days' time. Realistically speaking, you have to understand that there are 27 different First Nations with traditional territory interests in the Salish Sea, concerned about all of the environmental issues and interests there, in addition to the Department of National Defense and their target ranges, cable crossings, pipeline crossings, many different players involved, all of whom can sort of throw wrenches in the works. So we have professionals who are used to managing these processes. We have best efforts and some expectations, but the complexity in this particular area is such that there is some risk in that. And that's really why Stefan's talking about next winter. All going well, we'd like to see it happening midsummer, but to look at it realistically, just from the risk with this many stakeholders involved, winter is probably a safer bet.
So, Paul, just while you're talking about that, perhaps could you give us an idea of where the Hornby and Denman landing sites are being proposed? What the application was where to locate them?
Right adjacent to the ferry terminals for the Hornby Denman ferry. So, you know, I don't know if it's worth trying to share screens and show you details with all these folks on the call, but basically the landings are planned just off the BC Ferries properties immediately adjacent to the ferry terminals. And so on the Denman side, many of you folks will know that there's an access road and a couple of a limited number of parking stalls just off the ferry loading dock, and there are plans for splice vault and cabinet for network electronics to connect right around those parking areas as you come up to the road where the power lines run. Because we've got to have AC power access from the nearest power pole. On the Hornby side, there's I think if memory serves me well, there's a landing, like a boat launch ramp. There's a breakwater just to the east of the ferry dock. And the landing as planned would come in on the east side of that breakwater, right in tight where the breakwater joins the beach. And then there would be a short aerial build or possibly trench build for the fiber over to the road that connects directly with the ferry landing to get access to power again.
And so that would be, the intent would be to service the ferry terminals themselves with that proximity?
Yes, that would be part of it.
And has BC Ferries come up with some money or partnership into this Coastal Connect project?
They're not putting capital into it as yet. They're entertaining that, but they have given us assurances of their intent to connect, which would help defray operating costs. They'd be a major customer, and they would also entertain a public access point at each one of the terminals.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. We had a question about Renee Labocane of the Strathcona Regional District sent letters out to select a targeted number of people where a CIRA map had shown that the TELUS reports were saying that 5010 was already being achieved. And one of the questions was how successful was the uptake and the reply from the citizens on Hornby and Denman. So Renee has sent me the answer to that question, and 53 residents on Hornby and 6 on Denman completed that survey. And there were a lot more letters sent to Hornby than Denman. So I think that would be basically 60 residents of somewhere just over 100 letters that were sent. So a very positive rate of return on that public work that was required.
Hey Karen, did Renee send you the spreadsheet?
She did, Dave.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Good. Okay. And just to summarize that, because I think she had about, 10 communities on there. Now, depends how you measure success, but when we're looking at opportunities to access funding, I would safely say 95% of them didn't meet the 5010 standard.
Okay, thank you. I actually had a little bit of trouble interpreting the spreadsheet. It's kind of detailed.
Sure, yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. I just got that email from her, so I didn't have a chance to actually get back and ask that. So I appreciate that answer.
Yeah, no worries. It's a resounding failure in terms of providing 5010.
Yeah, that's what we were all saying. So it's nice to have it. Okay, so I'm not sure who wants to answer this, so I'll put out the question and then Stefan, perhaps you could start by fielding it. As you will know, we've had a lot of excitement around the Starlink beta program that there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 Starlink receivers that on Hornby and a smaller number on Denman, but people here have been extremely desperate for improved internet and have purchased the dishes and are part of the beta project with Starlink. Can you comment on what the difference would be between universal broadband and if our citizens chose to use the low Earth orbit satellite constellations?
Yeah, sure. So the firstly, the universal broadband that's a fund by the federal government. It's an allotted amount of money to be able to support communities on their broadband initiatives. So I think that the question was probably more along the lines of, okay, so what is the difference between what you're offering and Starlink?
Yes, I call that universal broadband without the F behind it. Because universality has been important in our community. We don't want to see this man left behind situation.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we couldn't just all buy Starlink receivers either, right? So that is the question. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So it's Starlink is an interesting, very interesting idea. Like I'll tell you personally, I support the Starlink concept. The problem is that it's not built for your community. So Starlink is built for extreme rural communities. In other words, the beta Starlink product is built for a home that's out in the middle of nowhere where there is no chance of any broadband solution being brought through to the individual homeowner. So as an example, so Starlink right now is offering speeds of up to 150 meg down, and it's on a $649 product with $130 a month payment thereafter. U.S. company, no Canadian counterpart, and what they're doing is they're relying on the homeowner to be the installation expert and the maintenance expert for the product itself on a product that offers up to 150 meg. And when they say up to 150 meg, it's because right now you've got about 1,000 low orbit satellites sitting in the atmosphere, and you've only got 10,000 customers on the Starlink network. Now, for them to be able to make it, their break even, their stated break even is 5 million customers. So what we're already seeing is that the more customers that are jumping onto the Starlink network, the lower the speed is becoming. And so we're already seeing reports of individuals that are reporting sub 10 megabytes download speeds when they don't have a dedicated spot beam to a satellite. And so as you get more people signing onto the network, you're going to have slower and slower download speeds because it's not a dedicated network like fiber is. Fiber is dedicated, so it doesn't matter how many people are on the network, you're getting 1,000 down. If there's an extra 1,000 people there, you're still getting 1,000 down. So the Starlink network isn't built in the same way. The other problem that we have in BC, so it's not just Denman and Hornby, trees. So if we were out in Arizona and we had beautiful open skies, then our equipment through Starlink would be able to track appropriately. But with us on Denman and Hornby, it becomes problematic, and it's not just Denman and Hornby; it's all the way across the coast in coastal BC. So I do believe I believe in the product. I think that they've got 1,000 satellites in low orbit right now. They've got some things to work through because some of those satellites are deorbiting already after 18 months, and they're relying on a lot of U.S. grant funding, already $850 million US, for for their project. So that I'd like to see less satellites deorbiting and more satellites up in the atmosphere for the product to become a little bit more robust. But in terms of a solution for Denman and Hornby, it's not built for you.
I'd also add that there's an old saying in the telecom industry that wireless solutions are wonderful if nothing else is available. If a hardwired cable solution is available, that's guaranteed to be a superior solution, particularly if that cable is fiber.
Yeah, I mean, like so our fiber will offer 10 times the speed that Starlink will provide. But like to Paul's point, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you have nothing, it's a great solution. It really is. I mean, I think it's fundamentally a good idea. And no company yet has been able to make low orbit satellites work. But Musk he's a smart guy. So hopefully they can make it work.
So this isn't actually one of the questions, but just because I have the chance to ask, we've been getting really good reports about streaming and Netflix and that from people with the Starlink. A couple of our working group have them, but Zoom calls, for some reason, as soon as the person goes to speak on a Zoom call, they get kicked off. So
it's latency and buffering, right?
Pardon?
So with Netflix you can buffer. So when there's a break in communication, it can buffer ahead. But when you're having a live chat like this, you can't do that. We can't buffer.
Okay, thank you. I didn't understand it. It seemed not to make sense to me, so I appreciate that explanation.
So, part of one of the questions you asked before, Karen, about latency. And where you have a tight design on a fiber network, you should be able to achieve latency times of 5 milliseconds.
Yeah.
To give you a comparative here, I know it's kind of speak talk, very technical, but the point about the 5 is that Starlink is struggling on their setup to offer 40. And you can imagine for anything that requires interactive, live, real-time action, faster is better. And 40 is 8 times as slower than the 5 option on the fiber.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. The reports we're getting, I think it's as low as 20 in some cases, but it's all over the map for sure. The reports are big swings. Yeah.
Yeah, it just depends on how many people are sharing the satellite, right? So if you've got a spot beam, if you've got a beautiful line to the satellite, it should be technically fine. The problem is as more people log on, then it's gonna get worse.
People, I know this is probably not a smart question, but why would more people logging on to a satellite signal make it a sharing situation?
So it's the bandwidth potential that's available through the satellite.
Okay, thank you. Got it. I was thinking of it as a beam of light. I wasn't thinking of it in terms of bandwidth. What do you see as the risk factor about TELUS being a large company, and right now we're TELUS Turf, and how would that affect this Connected Coast and consortium going forward? What's the risks that you see with TELUS? Will they just say thank you and let us go?
Well, no. There's no risk at all. So all the telcos cooperate in areas of service. So just because Strathcona and CityWest come to develop service onto Denman and Hornby, doesn't mean that a customer has to choose our service. It's just another service offering. So no risk, and certainly no risk to the Connected Coast, which is a separate project. This is connecting to the Connected Coast, but it's a community solution for Denman and Hornby.
I really appreciate that it actually almost becomes a public utility with the 20% partnership that the community will be able to firstly pay for our internet, but at the point that that loan is repaid, this becomes residual income for other uses in our community. So brilliant on your part to have figured out how all the communities along the whole coast will be able to work together and really benefit from an industry that everybody wants. So what could we do, Stefan, as a community to help move this project forward, or is there an ask that you would have of us?
Well, I mean, the ask is always if you can mobilize politicians to speak on behalf of the community, it always helps. So we we know that we're going into a hyper competitive funding pool. And so to the extent that we can give an elevated positioning to Denman and Hornby through local MLAs and MPs is good. So basically, letters of support. Letters of support is always the best thing. It's funny. I think that people don't necessarily understand how important their voices are. And so the voices of the community in support of projects like this goes a long way. It really does.
How useful do you see that the digital roadmap and implementation plan that we've completed, how useful is that at this stage? Should we be making sure that the National Library or locations in Ottawa have documentation of the work and the consultation that we've done?
Well, I think that it certainly wouldn't hurt. So the more information that's out there on the needs of the community, the more profile you get, and the more profile you get, the better an application looks to fund this.
Funders also look at work like that, Karen, as an indication of how serious the communities are, how committed they are to uptake and implementation or ongoing viability. It's really a very, very important measure of understanding, awareness of the issues, and commitment to the whole enterprise. Carries a lot of weight.
Yeah.
We undertook doing those reports on the advice of Network BC, and so I know that they're probably gatekeepers on that other 15% shortfalls. So I hope that has a lot of weight with them.
It does, and they lobby the feds with it.
So should we continue lobbying Network BC?
Sure.
That's a bit of an aside. Last time we talked to them, they told us lobbying didn't work.
Any official will tell you that.
He was very busy. I'm wondering, I'm getting to the end of what speed reading these questions. Would fiber optic improve cellular signals on the island? I know myself, I use Wi-Fi calling, so my cell service has improved since I got a phone that would do that. But is there a cellular component that we could either agree to or disagree to? We do have many citizens on the island that have got concerns around wireless technology.
Yeah. So okay. So I think that there's two parts to that. So the first one is does wireless improve the cellular signal? The answer is no. Sorry. Does fiber improve the cellular signal? No. What fiber does is fiber allows the data that is then transported from a tower to hold more bandwidth. But in terms of the signal itself, in other words, would the signal strength be higher at the home because there's fiber coming to the community? No, that would be more infrastructure that would have to be built. In terms of the wireless component, this is fiber, so there's no wireless. There's no. So for those who have concerns about the health aspects associated with wireless, this is a non-wireless solution. There's no wireless signals attached to fiber.
I would add, though, that to the extent that people start using more Wi-Fi enabled calling on cell phones within their homes and with the Wi-Fi broadcast areas around their homes, as more and more people move to mesh network type Wi-Fi solutions or extended Wi-Fi solutions, those are all dependent on everything, on all of the other characteristics of your service. So if your home Wi-Fi network is being powered from Starlink, and Starlink is struggling with 40 millisecond ping times or latency, you're going to have trouble using that Wi-Fi calling. And it's going to be much more effective with a fiber connection feeding that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. It's nice to feel that the solution could work for everyone. You know, the people that that really have an aversion to the wireless and have concerns about health impacts. So I appreciate that you've clarified that.
Yeah, Karen, it's categorically the fiber is categorically the most technologically advanced connectivity solution on the planet right now.
I wonder, Stefan, would we have time to see if anyone on the call would have a question? I'm sure I've missed something in here, but I've scanned 23 questions that I had, and through the dialogue, perhaps there's people with a burning question that I didn't have on my list or that I skipped. I know we're a little bit over time. I don't know what your time looks like. It's 6:15 at this point.
No, absolutely. They're happy to hear any questions anyone may have.
How would people indicate that they had a question? The little.
You could raise hand on the information bar, or just go ahead and speak up.
John Grayson here. I don't have a question. I just want to thank all three of you for a very cogent and very well done presentation. You've cleared up many things, and we look forward to supporting this initiative in any way, shape, or form that we can. So thank you again.
And thank you, John. We always appreciate having an opportunity to be able to engage meaningfully. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Likewise, thanks.
John, sorry, John is the lead on the Economic Enhancement Board. He's been the lead on the internet, so he's got expertise in telecom himself, and he's brought that to the project. So that's really great that that John's basically, you know, thanked you on behalf of that whole working group.
Well, we really appreciate it.
David Critchie has his hand up, and David is an island trustee on Denman Island.
That's right. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. It is wonderful. Thank you, Karen, for all the great questions. What I wanted to do was make an observation here that this issue of latency in respect of Zoom calls, I think is a very important one and should be reflected in any submissions that we're making, because other grant organizations or government people may think, well, you know, if you've got Starlink or some other type of system, that this is good enough, you're well served. But on the islands, we I think are increasingly going to be using Zoom type conferencing. We're certainly using it a lot in the Islands Trust right now. And I don't think we're going backwards from that in the future, even when we don't have viruses floating around. So this latency issue is huge and makes your fiber optic so much more appealing. And I just wanted to emphasize that as a frequent user of Zoom. So thank you.
Thank you, David. We would totally agree with you.
Yeah.
David, thank you for bringing up that point, because I know that the issues around climate change and some of the, emerging discussions in our community make that comment that you made about us probably not going to do as much traveling, and internet becoming more important for medical, for education, for all sorts of things. That this is really an important project for our community.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Yeah, Tony Gregson here.
Oh, hi, Tony. Great.
From Denman Works. I just wanted to ask about possible competitive response from TELUS. Now, you downplayed that, saying it's not really a risk, but the Denman Internet Committee was very concerned about getting into setting up an ISP structure that would then have to compete with TELUS, who are in a position to lower their rates and do other things. Do you think that is a possibility?
So Tony, is the identified risk a risk of them lowering their rates
To compete?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, if we look at service to the community, if an anti-competitive response from a telco on the island would be to lower their rates, then that serves the community. It's great. So then the community is, I suppose, making one of two choices. Choice A is, are they choosing the better product with the higher capacity, or they're choosing the other product with a better price point. And I think that if that's the identified risk point, it's something that we have to own as a business. That, in other words, the risk shifts ultimately to us. But in terms of serving the residents, it's good for you.
Okay, yeah, I think I get the picture. You are offering a product that is not offered by TELUS now, and it would be superior. So, yeah, you'd be able to outcompete them there. All right, well, thank you very much.
Oh, no, you're very welcome.
I'm wondering if James has any questions. James Warren, are you still on the call? And is there any question that we could get answered for you while we've got this resource before us with these?
Hi, Karen. No, I had a chance to speak with Stefan last week, and you and I have had many conversations, and so I appreciate hearing the conversation, hearing some of the questions that are out there. The CVRD at this point, we are undertaking that assessment to understand the model that we could participate in a funding strategy, providing that 10%. Should the 90% grant funding be provided? So that is part of our work right now, relying heavily on the work that you, Karen, and your team have put together and continue to support. And so we're certainly looking forward to continuing to just unearth some of these different pieces and really painting a clear picture for the public when we get to a point, if we do get to a point of asking the public about a new service to fund the 10%, getting to a clear picture about what those costs are going to be and what the benefits will be should the service be established. So really a pros and cons analysis of what's being put in front of the public.
Thanks, James.
James, thank you so much for your absolute diligence in doing your investigations around what's best for the islands in terms of the CVRD taking a leadership role. You've been awesome, so thank you.
Well, thank you, Karen. No, I enjoy being able to have this dialogue and learn more, and certainly am learning more on the fiber side of things and internet connectivity. So it's fascinating.
We're going to make a telco specialist out of you, yes.
Always learning, continuous improvement.
Peter Spur and John Weigel are the Denman team members from our working group, and very knowledgeable, and really with John Grayson have been the brains in our little working group. I'm wondering if they have anything that they would like to either add or question at this point. Peter, is that you laughing? Okay, well, if there's no more questions, probably everybody's starting to get hungry for dinner.
Sounds like a good plan. John Grayson here. I just want to throw in a little bit of a future thought. Ultimately, there are going to be things like brain surgery, using robots, and they will have to have fiber. They can't use any other system that has to be super stable. So there are going to be advances in technology that will 100% require a high bandwidth fiber connection in order to truly advance, remote medical services. So that's just a final comment from me, and I thank everyone again, and I wish everyone a lovely evening.
Thanks.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay, I think if there's no more questions, and I just would really, again, like to reiterate what John Grayson has just said, and thank you so much, Stefan, for organizing and for bringing your team together, for bringing Paul Daniel, and I hope Dave Leach has made it home so that he's not still in his car. But
Yeah, no, I'm home now. Yeah.
Good.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be able to speak with you all today, and we're always available should you need anything.
That was great.
Okay.
Thanks everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Have a great evening.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.